Look at this one, please. Maximilian Armat, first third of 16th century.
That's a triple crown because it's got 3 ribs.
Yes. Bede, look at here.
Yeah. Maybe something bad happened to him. This has the classic thing of having breathing holes on the right-hand side. And
you know what? I think he couldn't breathe very well. Someone tried to help him in that aspect. Respect
with a spiky weapon.
I think so. Yeah.
These fold out. You put them on your head, and then they all close down, and then the visor comes down, and you're totally enclosed. They've got enough room for padding in them, but they're fairly close fitting. So these offer a lot of protection, but breathing is an issue. If you're doing strenuous exercise, and vision is very limited.
Yes, very limited.
But, if it's used in tournament and things like that, hey, it's better to be protected than it is to have clear vision, because even if you lose, you'll still be alive. Whereas in battle, if you lose, you might be dead. Yes, well, you'd probably be dead.
Absolutely. These are some parts of the mail construction, mail armor. So we can take a look at, oh, sorry, what did I do? Mail armor, so you can see the rings. Beautiful.
Yeah. Mail is one of those things that in person, it's really impressive because it's just this, it's like jewelry. It's got so many intricate parts fitted together. Yeah, it's practical. I mean, if you've got someone wearing riveted mail and you slash them with a really sharp sword, it's really
my daughter is very interested in mail. She's just 17, and then I gave her a piece of riveted mail, which my riveted mail, which was made for me, and it was too long, so I had it shortened and had part of it. And she came and said, "Dad, do you need that?" I said, "No. What do you want?" I said, "Can I have them?" So then I realized she went to her friends and they all cut parts of it and they were hanging it from the clothes they have. And I just said, "Yours," I said, "What?"
Yeah, I mean, that's just as good.
And she was here. I saw all her friends have part of that mail of mine. I said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh," they all said, "Oh, it looks so beautiful." And I said, "Why are you looking at the mail?"
They're not the first persons to do that, because in the late 19th century, they used to make purses for women out of very fine soldered silver mail.
Oh, okay.
I've seen them, and they're so small. The rings are tiny.
Yes.
And they didn't rivet them. They soldered the ends together with the silver.
So the other day my daughter came and said, "Dad, can you have more mail?" I said, "Well, I'm designing other clothes of mine with the mail." I said, "Can I cut something else from your mail armor?" I said, "You're not going to cut anything else." I still need my mail armor, It's just so funny, really funny.
They probably could get that decorative aluminium mail.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't think about that one. Yeah.
And it's lighter to wear. It doesn't rust.
Yeah.
And they're not using it for fighting, so I think that's quite
No, they're not, of course not. Yeah. So this is interesting, right?
Yeah, spurs.
Yeah.
The stirrup. See how thin that stirrup is?
Yeah, here, let me just show this one.
Yeah, yeah. That in modern boots, that would be very uncomfortable to ride in, unless it is just the outside of a wood-lined stirrup or something like that. But I've seen some early stirrups that are really thin. I've got a pair of Hussar stirrups from the 19th century up on my bookcase there, and I've ridden with them. And the plate, like the foot plate, is about that wide, which is very narrow, but it's only, like 2 millimeters, 3 millimeters thick. And they rode with very long stirrup leathers so that they were putting very little pressure on the stirrups. They were just to stop them from rocking backwards and forwards too much. I mean, this is only one area that one group of people were doing it, but this is quite clearly you're not putting a lot of force on your stirrups because those stirrups are so thin.
They're from 13th, 14th century stirrup, and then also spurs, right? And this one is interesting. This
Is it a
one is,
caltrop?
yes,
Yes.
it is a caltrop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, a caltrop is the horse's worst nightmare
Yeah.
because a horse doesn't see them
Yeah.
and they get in the soft part of the horse's hoof
Yes.
and cause terrible pain. I mean, if a person steps on them, they cause terrible pain for them as well. Even if you're wearing, remember if this is that the same period?
This is the same. They don't give the period for this
Oh
one,
yeah.
actually.
But assuming it's the same period because they look like the same kind
Yes.
of metal.
Yes.
In the 13th century, European shoes had very thin soles. Because they were all turn shoes and you couldn't make the soles very thick because it was too hard to turn the shoe inside out after you'd sewn it. So very thick soled shoes didn't come in until other traditions of shoemaking entered Europe. So caltrops would have been much more dangerous to people than we would think because we think of military boots and they've got really solid, hard soles. But in the time that these were made, soles were thin and they weren't very hard. So you step on one of those and it's really painful. And even when you get it out, well, first of all, you're still bleeding for a while because they're hammered into triangular spikes or square cross-section spikes. So they make a hole that's really quite, nasty. They're on the ground.
Yes.
And the ground is probably covered in various bits of horse manure. So tetanus, septicemia, you don't want to step on a caltrop. Bad news. This is a wonderfully adjustable firearm.
Yeah.
That's in the days when culverins were long and thin rather than really heavy duty
Yes.
cannons.
Yes.
I love the adjustment. It's beautiful, isn't it?
The carriage only, not the other parts, like the metal parts, not. The carriage is a reconstruction, but really based on the original one. And as they explain it, 1480, 1500, these parts, these metal parts, and also the carriage.
Yeah. Well, see, that's it. When you've got the metal bits, and honestly, these are in paintings as well. So, I mean, even if you didn't have the metal bits, you could probably reconstruct it quite accurately. But that's a really nice one. The way they've done the wooden reconstruction is very sensitive to the period. The woodworking is really quite high grade because all those little flutings and changes of thickness and that very typical. Sometimes people just make really blocky stuff and they don't have any of this elegance. And I'm not criticizing the other curators because they're limited by how much money they can spend, but I'm praising the people that did this because they went to a lot of trouble to make it look real.
Yes. And it has the coat of arms of Strasbourg on it as well. Mm-hmm. And these are these stone cannon bullets, right? And cannonballs. Sorry, stone ones. Yeah. And they are protective, but one of them, which is attached to a chain, you can hold it. So my son loved it when he could hold the one of them.
Oh, right. Well, see, the thing about this is that I like the fact that they've got them in the little frame so that they make a pyramid,
Yeah,
which is what they really did when they were setting these up. But you imagine, I'm looking at the shoes next to them. Are they your shoes or your son's?
my son's shoes. Yes.
Okay, so they're a little bit smaller than yours.
No,
But
yes.
but see, say they're like that big. A stone ball like that
Oh no, I'm
may
sorry, not on this picture. I stand corrected. These are my shoes. I'm sorry.
well, in that case it's bigger. So when one of these is fired out of a cannon, now I don't know what the velocity is, maybe 400 meters per second or something like that. Quite high velocity. Not high compared to modern guns, but high compared to catapults and things like that.
Yeah, of course.
When that you fire that against a town wall, it's going to damage the town wall, but it's going to break apart into splinters as well.
Yeah,
So it forms a kind of shrapnel. When
yeah,
one of those hits a paved surface and bounces up, it also could shatter into lots of pieces. So aside from their function as when they directly hit something or somebody, if they're unlucky, they have this mass and they smash into it with the force of, the energy that they have. But they
yes,
also have potential for breaking apart into lots of little pieces,
yes,
which can damage the people you're shooting at. But
yes.
it also means the enemy can't pick them up and load them and shoot them back at you because they're in pieces. Here's a
This,
beautiful looking.
yes, we have a wheel lock arquebus and is made by the famed Elias Gessler, master's gunmaker in 1585, who died in 1616. It has an Strasbourg inspection mark dated 1593.
Wow. See, again, the stock is a work of art. The barrel, it looks actually really nice too.
Yeah,
Um, Wheel lock mechanisms are interesting. I've only seen one shot once, I think. I don't see a lot of guns. And it's basically the cigarette lighter principle, the old-fashioned like 1940s cigarette lighters, where you have a piece of pyrites and you have a spinning metal wheel,
yes.
steel wheel. Um, but I've seen people, I think the Hungarian guy in cap and ball on YouTube shooting guns like this, and they're really quite good. I
Yeah,
mean, we think in terms of mass-produced Brown Bess type guns, which their accuracy was limited, but they weren't shot one man at one other man. They were shot rows of men at other rows of men. But these guns were often reasonably accurate and sometimes had quite impressive um,
yes.
muzzle velocities for something that's shooting early types of gunpowder, because early types of gunpowder are nowhere near as efficient as modern ones.
Yeah, of course.
Well, this is what I'm told by people that understand guns. I
And the
like
next,
these wheel-lock pistols are crazy, aren't they?
yes,
They're
this is
so
this
yeah.
is a soldiers, they call it wheel lock pistol, made by, again, another famed gunmaker, Hans Müller. There are many who, his name right here, who married in 1565. Well,
Good for
Strasbourg
him.
inspection mark dated 1565 as well. So look at
Mm.
this, beautiful.
And considering you're holding it right down at the back of the barrel or the back of the handle, because look where the trigger is.
Yes, yeah,
So that gun kind of comes up like that and then forward. So it's a long way away from you when you shoot. Um, and the mechanism is very exposed. So inside the wheel, is there a chain or something? And you wind up the spring on the outside using that protruding axle. And when you pull the trigger, you've bent the cock backwards so that the pyrite that's holding is resting against the top of the wheel. So the wheel spins, the pyrites generate sparks, and that shoots the gun. But you have a look at all those intricate parts that are visible. At least you had some idea of what was going on. Now this is something I know a bit
sorry,
about.
yes. Now we go to the
Yeah.
crossbow.
Yeah,
You're
these are
moving to 17th, 18th century crossbows now.
yeah, big steel bows. See, the advantage of steel bows was that they made them shorter so they didn't take up as much room. You could stand closer to your friends. You could store them in barrels of oil or something to stop them rusting for 100 years and just get them out and clean them and mount them on a crossbow stock. So there's no problem with that. The strings are enormous. And
just for our viewers, that on top, this is attributed to 17th, 18th century. Below is to 17th century. And then the bolts we have here, the museum says that 3 of them, they're original, but 3 of them are reconstructions.
Okay. Well, when you look at them, see, the thing is, there's quite a fair number of the wooden bolts surviving. So museum curators would have a very good idea of the shapes, like they're often tapered in both directions. They were often made of quite hard, heavy wood to stand the shock of being shot. You might notice the top crossbow, I think, has a metal clip that goes to hold the bolt on.
Yes.
The bottom crossbow has one, but it's been folded back out of the way.
Yeah.
Which is one of the ways that you could load the crossbow. Most of that one, looking at the shape of the clip, that one has to be folded out of the way.
Yeah.
See, sometimes the clip had a curve in the front and the string would push it up out of the way when you braced it. And other ones that they just went flat down. So you folded them out of the way, cock the crossbow, put the bolt in the teeth of the nut, and then folded that back on to hold it down so you could shoot downwards or upwards without the bolt sliding out.
Bede, could you explain this device for us?
Okay, well, in English and French, you would call it cranaquin. They've got it there, arbalète à cranaquin et sans cranaquin. It's a gearbox with a ratcheted bar with 2 hooks. So if you see, there's like a loop towards the front of it. That's facing the wrong way for putting on the crossbow. So the front of it there's a loop that slides down over the stock down to those 2 bars sticking out.
Yeah.
And at the tail of it there, you can see like a big pair of claws. Well, they're actually facing towards the front of the crossbow. They hook over the string. You wind the handle. The gearbox turns the gears, which one of the final gear is touching the that bar on the bottom, and as you wind it, it comes back. It's like an old-fashioned car jack, and it pulls the string back. They often have ratios of like 140 to 1. So you apply 1 pound's force, and it effectively is 140 pounds force. So the bows could have draw weights of anything up to 1,500 pounds. 2,000 is not unknown in crossbows. These are hunting bows. I say that because of the date. The bolts down there have actual armor-piercing heads on them, but these crossbows are designed for hunting. Because in the 17th century, sometimes crossbows were used in warfare, but not very commonly, because a crossbow is actually more expensive to make than a gun. Which is one of the reasons that, and it doesn't have the range and it doesn't have the stopping power. It certainly has more accuracy. I mean, guns at the time these crossbows were made were not as accurate. And one of the reasons they kept using crossbows for hunting was when you wanted to be extremely accurate. They were really quite good if you can get, close enough to shoot. Yeah, you can see the gearbox. See the teeth coming out of the bar? That's what the gear turns against. So you wind the wheel around. There's a small wheel at the base of that handle, which turns a big wheel, which has got a small wheel directly attached to the same axle, and that engages those teeth, and that pulls the whole thing back to draw the string. Because no human being could pull that string.
No, of course.
I mean, even it's only 4 inches or whatever. No human being could pull that back, no matter how strong they were, because its minimum weight would be 800 pounds.
Yes.
Oh, and these are highly accurate chinka style guns. Now, I'm not sure about this. A gun expert might be able to tell us. My understanding was these were actually held against the cheek.
They were
They had
actually.
heavy barrels, and the barrel
Yes,
absorbed a lot of the
exactly.
recoil. So the
Okay.
barrel's quite big, but it doesn't mean that the bore, the hole in the barrel, is this big.
Yes.
I had colleagues that worked at did bench rest shooting, where you're shooting uh, highly accurate guns that you rest on a bench, and they had really big barrels,
Yes.
small bores, and they had Kevlar stocks because the weight of the stock was insignificant. The barrel absorbed all of the recoil. Well, I mean, not all of it. There was still enough to give you a bit of a kick. Wow, this is nice stuff.
We go to the next one. This is beautiful one as well as we'll
Mm.
see. The first
And,
one
and
we go. Excuse me. Go ahead.
oh yeah, I was going to say, looking at that group of helmets with them, you can see
Yes.
they vary from a close helm kind of thing where you're completely protected to
Yes.
the lobster pots, which protect the back of your neck, your ears, the top of your head.
Yes.
There's a visor, and they had cabassets on the other side, which only protect the top of your head,
Yes.
but they're a lot lighter and more comfortable to wear. See,
We are
that's a
going
nice
to.
looking.
Yeah, we go to a Schiavone, cavalry sword, Italian Schiavone, with skeleton hilt, late 16th century, early 17th century. This one is marked and was made by Johannes Zuchini in Italy, from Italy, hallmark from the Arsenal of
Mhm.
Venice, excuse me. This weapon was
Yeah, they're
typical
very.
of the Dalmatian mercenaries in Venice and is used spread to many other armies.
Yeah,
So you see that Italian, beautiful make
yeah,
made in
yeah.
Italy.
So Schiavone in Italian, and what Schiavone in German. Uh, the These were, yeah, predominantly mercenary cavalrymen used them.
Yes.
They're like a Northern European basket hilt in some ways.
Yeah.
They're always very stylish. That swirling pattern of bars I think is very good looking. So that's a looks like a two-edged sword.
Yeah, it
Um,
is. Yes.
so you've got flexibility, cut back, cut forward. Um,
Yes.
you've got very good hand protection.
Yes.
Uh, a very nice looking sword. See, this is one of the areas where European swords developed their own system of hand protection.
Yes.
Um, so it meant that it was easier to use one of these swords with less things. Like you can probably get away with using this without a shield.
Yeah.
Or when you're on horseback, you can be holding your reins and using your sword without too much trouble.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've got a shield, you've got less movement of the reins. Uh, deep, deep fuller, very deep fuller.
Very deep. Yeah. Especially at the fort. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's I've never I've handled European basket hilts. I've never handled one of these. I was always impressed by how they looked. They
When
looked
I
like,
was in Italy, I handled a couple of them at this museum, but we're going to talk about them later. Very well balanced. I really love them.
well,
Look
that's
at
good.
this surface of the blade,
Oh yeah.
and look
So
at the mail armor. My God, look at the
very
rings.
fine.
Very nice. Very nice. Really.
At a certain stage, riveted mail in Europe, they start to make it really fine. I mean, it was in the East, it's really fine too. In certain armors, other armors they made big rings because for decorative purposes. But I
Pete, look at
remember
the
seeing,
blade. Look at the blade.
yeah,
It shows some activity. Do you see that?
yeah. I is it pattern welded,
Yeah. Yeah.
folded, and yeah,
Yeah.
because that'd be a practical way of making blades.
Yes.
You couldn't always guarantee a single piece of steel would be uniform in quality. It was more practical in some cases to pattern weld, but it's more expensive because you've got more man hours of a skilled workman. This is a wonderful helmet. There's a few of these around. I know there's some in Poland.
Yeah.
Um, they say that all the holes in those wings, the air rushes through them when you're galloping and makes a whistling noise. I don't know about that. I think you'd have to be going real fast. But
With all the battle noises and
yeah, how would you hear it over everything else? But
exactly.
on the other hand, um, I don't think that they have a lot of practical use, but I think they would have a very strong effect on morale and things like
Yes.
that. Like when you're facing a guy with this huge helmet with all these bits, but carefully made so it's not too heavy. I mean, I bet they are heavy, but I don't think the piercings reduce the weight. The ribs
Yes.
reduce the weight because if you hammer up that rib, it makes it stiffer than it would be if it was just flat.
Yes. So,
Uh, so that, looks really pretty, probably quite intimidating when someone charges you wearing it, but
so they,
ultimately, certain practical things have
yes,
influenced the design.
they call it 1650, around 1650, Cape line with wings. And yeah, very beautiful,
Yeah,
very beautiful.
yeah, it's really nice looking.
And the mail armor, the mail, look at this.
Yeah,
God, beautiful, riveted, so small. Look at the rivet hats,
yeah, it's tiny.
tiny,
It's
unbelievable.
beautiful work. I mean, obviously, it's really effective. I remember seeing an old 1920s film from the Metropolitan Museum of Art where they had some mail in a sleeve and they got a needle and you couldn't push the needle through the mail because it was so small and so tight. And this is the kind of thing you're looking at. It would have been very effective, but it's a huge amount of work. It's a show-off piece. If you can afford this mail, you're telling people just how important you are. The fact that it works well, that's
Yeah.
useful too.
Yes.
Cabassets,
Yeah.
very popular helmets.
Yes. 1600 to 1610. Very
Yeah,
simple, beautiful though.
but that's it. Just protect the top of the head, give you a little bit of extra
Yes.
protection around there. You can wear it all day,
Yes.
and you're not going to take it off because you're too hot. This one you could probably wear for an hour if you were lucky. After that, you take it off.
You sweat to death, right?
Yeah,
Burgonet, right?
yeah. But I mean, and also look how it fits on the neck. You're not going to be able to turn your head when you wear that.
No, no.
So,
16.
mate, yeah,
14.
some of these are really good for tournament fighting
Yes.
because you're not having people come from all different
I
directions
mean,
at you.
that's what exactly people make a mistake always. They always compare, as we talked about it on this channel, but let us just reiterate it. They always compare because these type of tournaments were not done in the same manner. The battlefield armor from Iran, Ottoman Turkey, India, or whatever, China, Asia, Japan, they compare that to tournament armor of Europe, and they always conclude European armor were very much better protects you. But which type? You're comparing
Yeah.
tournament armor to battlefield armor,
Yeah,
right?
European battlefield armor was really very practical. It clearly was heavier than Ottoman and Persian and Chinese. Um, though weirdly enough, Japanese armor got really heavy for quite a period. Uh, the difference is tournaments, formal tournaments, were popular in Europe for hundreds of years. There was
Yes.
a pressure to develop because you don't want all your best knights to be killed in tournaments. And in fact, the church and various kings banned tournaments at various times because people were getting killed.
Yeah.
So it's logical to make very high quality armor for tournaments. But the tournament didn't like you didn't fight all day in a tournament. You fought all day in a battle.
Exactly.
And
That's the
and so
difference.
therefore the requirements are different. But if
Look
I
at
was in
this
a
one.
tournament, I'd want the best armor. See that you could wear all day too.
Yeah.
And I mean, look at the kind of design features. The brow, the visor, the edges roll to make it stronger and also to stop you from scratching yourself with it. The ear flaps are the same. You've got piercings for hearing.
Yeah.
You can see where the rivets and the straps go because you can see the rivets on the brim of the helmet that come down to support the ear flaps.
And
The
lobster protection, back
yeah,
neck.
and the neck guard is particularly well designed. That actually attaches directly to the helmet instead of to the straps. So on one of the Turkish helmets we looked at, they had like a strip like that attached by little toggles, kind of like
Yes,
little segments of chain.
yes,
But also the fluted headpiece, the actual top of the helmet, is very much like a turban helmet in the
yes,
fluting. But fluting is strong if it's done by a master armorer.
yes.
Um, so and look at the nasal too. Look at the really big screw to adjust it up and down. It's massive. It's like somebody got the thing for winding up a clock and stuck it on the front of a helmet.
Yes.
But that, if you look at the curve of that, it curves up over the helmet. When you brought that down, that would curve in under your chin, I think.
But this is
If it
another
goes,
example. Exactly.
yeah.
Beautiful.
Again, look at that back of the neck protection is really well designed.
Yeah.
You
Very
still
beautiful.
can throw your head back, but
Yes.
if somebody comes, you're two people charge past each other, and one of the guys just goes whack like that as you go past. If it hit that, it'd knock your head forward, but it wouldn't hurt your neck that badly.